So there were some close calls around the NFL today, with eyes going wide as several players either went down or limped off the practice field. A couple of these players are looking to have impactful seasons, so initially this was a bit scary. Well, even though it seems like things should be okay for most of these guys, scares like this are sadly only beginning as things ramp up. So I've got to talk about that, the Raiders adding a new linebacker, the potential rise of the Carolina Panthers, and much more right after. First up, after being seen out at practice working in with the defensive backs during individual drills yesterday, Packers wide receiver Bo Melton was seen back out there again today, doing the same at mandatory minicamp. Yesterday, Packers GM Brian Gutekunst shared that it's something they're experimenting with. They're loaded at wide receiver and thin at corner, so the timing of it does make sense. Bo has been a solid special teams player, so they like the idea of him possibly making the transition. And the reason I bring this up is because I wanted to share this tweet from Bucky, who played with the Packers for a couple of years back in the 90s. He said they've routinely converted wide receivers to defensive backs, particularly if they're good special teams players due to their athleticism, toughness, and tackling. He thinks Melton's abilities on special teams could earn him a roster spot and buy him enough time to fully learn his new position. He himself, talking about Bucky Brooks, made the transition from receiver to defensive back in '95 after the team successfully pulled it off with Corey Harris the year prior, and Harris went on to have a 12-year career in the NFL. So it can be done, and if anybody would know, it would be someone who's done the same thing with the very same team. Bo actually spoke with the media today and said while he still thinks of himself as a wide receiver, he made that clear more than once, if the move to corner works, then he's all for it, even saying he does kind of like it a little bit. Apparently this isn't a new idea either, and Matt LaFleur actually brought it up years ago to him. Travis Hunter is no stranger to playing both receiver and corner as well, except he's trying to do both in the NFL, not one or the other. Yesterday, during the first day of minicamp for the Jags, he was actually out there working as a cornerback, doing DB drills. That was noticeable because during all 4 OTA practices that were open to the media, he was practicing exclusively on offense. And then today, he found himself back out there with the offense yet again. It's way too early to tell, but right now it does seem like he'll primarily be playing receiver in the NFL, at least for the Jags, and be sprinkled in on defense at times. Whatever side of the ball he's on, he's making plays, that's for sure. He's already had some pretty ridiculous highlight clips come out from practices as both receiver and cornerback, though again, I won't hype it up too much because the pads still need to come on. Now, speaking of Jags receivers, Brian Thomas Jr. had a bit of an injury scare during practice today. He reportedly landed hard after a pass was broken up and he was down on the ground for a bit. It looked like a shoulder injury and he stayed on the sideline for the remainder of practice. Lots of Jags fans concerned about that. He is a dog of a receiver, that's for sure. However, fear not, because Liam Cohen said that Thomas did not suffer a serious injury and he could have gone back into drills, but they held him out of practice as a precautionary measure. So thankfully he's okay, and I for one cannot wait to watch both he and Travis Hunter in this offense together. I'm curious to see what Mr. Duval, Liam Cohen, can do with this team and if he can replicate some of the success he had in Tampa last year as their offensive coordinator. They put up the 4th most points and 3rd most yards, with Baker Mayfield having the best season of his career, and it really wasn't close. 4,500 yards and 41 touchdowns when his previous career high in touchdowns was 28, and that was actually the year prior. So, can Cohen unlock Trevor Lawrence in a similar way? We shall see. He hasn't quite lived up to the hype of being the number 1 overall pick, and last year he did not play up to his 5-year, $275 million contract that he signed before the season. He only played in 10 games last year after suffering a nasty concussion. Still hate watching that play, but he also needed surgery on his non-throwing shoulder. I have no idea how many games this team can win this year, but I do know they're going to be fun to watch regardless. Another team I'm looking forward to watching this year might surprise you a bit, but I'll give you my reasons why in a second, and that's going to be the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young finished last year out strong, throwing for over 600 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 0 INTs while going 2-1 in the last 3 games of the season. Yeah, I know that's a pretty small sample size, but it was solid momentum to take into the offseason and build upon. He's come into year 3 of his career with a chip on his shoulder, and while he's been known to be a more quiet and reserved guy, he's reportedly been talking some trash at practices this year. That's what Panthers corner J.C. Horn said. Bryce is talking way more in general this year and trash talking every day. Head coach Dave Canales has noticed a difference in his demeanor as well and said he loves the newfound energy and that guys are going at it in practice. Wide receiver Adam Thielen is heading into his 12th season as a pro and the 3rd as a Panther, so he's definitely been around the block and he thinks there's something different about this year's squad. He said that guys are finally sick of being the same old Carolina Panthers, that they want to get back to what this team did in 2015 when they made a Super Bowl run and in other years past where the city was pumped up because of the team's success. They've definitely had some dark days in recent years. The last time they had a winning record was in 2017, and the last time they won a playoff game was during that 2015 run, so it's been roughly 10 years. Since then, they've cycled through 5 different head coaches and countless starting quarterbacks. Dave Canales, their current coach, has won just 7 games in his first 2 years at the helm, and you've got to imagine his seat is getting a bit hot if they don't make the playoffs this year or at least stack up a winning record. In order to do that, they need to set Bryce Young up for success. They've definitely tried doing that this offseason by taking Teteroa McMillan 8th overall. He's been out there running routes and catching passes from Bryce, and yeah, I know we're not supposed to glean too much from padless practices, but he can freaking move for a guy that's 6'4". I'm definitely excited to see him in this offense next to Adam Thielen, who we just talked about. Then the newly signed Hunter Renfrow, Xavier Legette is going into his 2nd year as well. Speaking of Legette, he appeared to come up hobbling after a play in yesterday's practice and left the field with trainers, but thankfully he later returned and appears good to go. Tet McMillan was actually kicked in the leg yesterday, so he missed practice today, but Dave Canales said he hopes to have him back Thursday. Then Carolina went out and signed Rico Dowdle and drafted Trevor Etienne. Yes, Travis's brother in the 4th round of the draft. They also retained a couple of their own offensive linemen, and believe it or not, but that O-line was a lot better than people think last year. They only gave up 36 sacks, which was tied for 11th best in the league. They also ranked 7th in run blocking according to PFF, which checks out considering Chuba Hubbard ran for nearly 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns in only 15 games. Their defense, however, was definitely the weakest link. They ranked dead last in both yards and points allowed, with teams putting up over 31 points a game on them on average. That is far from ideal. That's why they went crazy in free agency, signing 4 different defenders to multi-year deals, and that's not including extensions that they gave out to their own guys like J.C. Horn, Michael Jackson, cornerback Michael Jackson, that is, among several others. It also helps that they're in a weaker division. The Bucs are favorites to win the NFC South for sure, but the Saints have a huge question mark at quarterback with Derek Carr retiring. Tyler Shuck is a complete unknown at this point, so we'll see there, even though he's almost 50 years old. Then the Falcons should be competitive, and while Michael Penix showed some flashes last year, it was a pretty small sample size, and we don't fully know what he's capable of just yet. So if some balls bounce the right way, don't be shocked to see Carolina making a push for the playoffs late in the season. I'm not saying they're going to light the world on fire or anything like that, but they could win 9 or 10 games and sneak in as a wild card team. I mean, I think that is absolutely in the cards. Next up, Commanders wide receiver Noah Brown reportedly went down with an injury in 7-on-7s today, and he actually ended up being carted off the field. The good news, though, is that he actually walked over to the cart, albeit slowly, but he was able to at least walk on his own power. So I'm hoping the best for him and that it's nothing too serious, because he was expected to have a role in this offense once again this year. He signed with them last offseason and provided some depth in the room, finishing with 35 catches for over 400 yards and that one insane Hail Mary touchdown catch against the Bears, something I will never forget for the rest of my life. Anyway, Washington re-signed him to a 1-year deal this offseason to help fill out the room that already includes Terry McLaurin, who's holding out and once paid. A payday should be coming, I would imagine. Then also they traded for Deebo Samuel. They have Luke McCaffrey and Michael Gallup, who signed with them out of retirement. Another guy dealing with an injury today is Bills rookie corner Maxwell Hairston. He left the field with what appeared to be a left knee injury, but he was up and walking around talking to athletic trainers and all that. So it doesn't appear to be too serious. Just at this point in time in the offseason, teams will often err on the side of caution. Speaking of being cautious, Patriots wideout Stephon Diggs certainly was yesterday when he kind of tiptoed around the media's questions as he spoke to them for the first time since he went viral for handing out an unidentified pink substance on a boat. He told the media that he's sure everybody here is great people, but he prefers to keep his private life personal. He's had convos with Mike Vrabel and people within the building, and the particulars of those convos is something he wants to keep internal. I mean, that's fine, but if you want to keep your private life personal, let's try not to have weird moments like that caught on film, posted to the internet, and then going viral. If you do that, you won't even have to answer questions like this in the first place, but I digress. If no repercussions happen from this incident, that's the outcome the Patriots would certainly prefer, as Diggs has looked pretty good so far at mandatory camp as well as OTAs, and he's the presumed to be wide receiver 1 for New England this season, so they definitely need him out there. And from here, we've got to talk about some AFC West news, because shortly after being released by the Bengals, one of the leaders on that team last year led the team in tackles as well, so they release him to save a little bit of cap space. Well, he's now a Raider, okay? He's being signed to a 1-year deal by the Las Vegas Raiders. It's a $4.25 million deal, and he can earn up to $500,000 in incentives. This is a good signing for the Raiders, because why the heck not? He started all 17 games last season and is coming off a career-high 143 tackles to go along with 2 INTs, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. They are also looking at free agent cornerback Shaquille Griffin. He visited with them today. He's a former Pro Bowler. He did visit with Seattle earlier on in the offseason. He was drafted by the Seahawks actually back in 2017, spending 4 seasons there. So he's got the ties to Pete Carroll, and we'll see if anything happens. He appeared in all 17 games with 3 starts in 2024 for the Vikings, had a couple of picks, a couple of PBUs. Will it really amount to anything? We shall see, but the Raiders are still out here making some moves. So make sure to let me know your thoughts on these injury scares, the rise of the Panthers, and some of these recent moves that the Raiders just made in the comments down below. And with that, I'll see y'all next time.